She left at 3 a.m., packed one bag, left her keys on the kitchen table, left her phone charging by the bed, left her coffee half-made on the counter, and walked out of a life she had spent 11 years building without telling a single person she was going.
And nobody reported her missing because 3 days later, a postcard arrived. 2 words, "I'm okay."
This is her story, and by the end of it, you will understand why she left. You will understand why she did not say goodbye, and you will have learned more natural English than in any grammar lesson you have ever sat through.
Stay, because the reason she left, nobody saw it coming, and it changes everything you think you know about this story. The setup. Her name was Clara, 34 years old, an architect. She lived in a flat on the 4th floor of a building she had designed herself, which was either poetic or ironic depending on how you looked at it. She had a good job, a long-term relationship, a group of friends who met every Thursday for dinner. From the outside, a complete life. And from the inside? From the inside, she had been feeling for approximately 2 years like she was watching her own life through a window, present, not inside it, as if someone had built a very convincing replica of a life she had once genuinely lived, and she was inhabiting the replica without quite being able to find the original. How long had she felt that way? 2 years, maybe longer. She had stopped being able to say exactly when it had started, which she told me later was itself part of the problem. You cannot fix something if you cannot find when it broke. She told you? She told me 6 months after the postcard, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. Notice what we just did, watching her own life through a window, inhabiting a replica. These are not basic vocabulary. These are the phrases that real English speakers use to describe feeling disconnected from their own lives. And you understood them, without a dictionary, because the story carried them. That is what stories do that grammar lessons cannot. They carry the vocabulary in the feeling, and when vocabulary arrives in a feeling, it stays. Remember these, watching through a window, inhabiting a replica. I cannot find when it broke. We will come back to them. Stay, because what happened on the night before she left, the Tuesday, is the part of the story nobody knows, and it changes everything. The Tuesday before she left, she went to work as usual. She had 3 meetings, she redesigned a doorway in a building she was working on, moved it 4 inches to the left, because something about the original position felt wrong and she could not say why, but she knew. She trusted the feeling. She moved the door. And then she went home, made dinner. Her partner, Daniel, was at the table working on his laptop. They ate without speaking, not because they were angry, because they had run out of things to say that felt worth saying. And that, she told me later, was the moment. Not a fight, not a crisis, just the silence that was not comfortable anymore. It had become the loudest thing in the room. A silence that became loud. The silence became the loudest thing in the room, and she sat there, fork in hand, looking at a man she had loved for 11 years, and she thought, I cannot do this for another 11, not because I do not love him, because I have disappeared inside this life, and he has not noticed, and I have not said. She had not said. She had not said a single word about what she was feeling, not to Daniel, not to her friends, not to anyone. For 2 years, she had been quietly, completely disappearing, and no one had seen it, because she was very good at being present in a room while being entirely absent from her own life. 3 phrases from that section worth keeping. The silence became the loudest thing in the room, when what is not said fills a space more completely than what is said. I have disappeared inside this life, losing yourself gradually within the structure of your own existence, present in a room while entirely absent from my own life, physically there, emotionally nowhere. All 3 are C1 level English. All 3 arrived through the story. All 3 are yours. Stay, because at 2:47 a.m. she made a decision, and the way she made it is not what you expect.
She did not plan it. That is the first thing people assume, that she had been planning for weeks, packing a little at a time, researching places to go. She had not. The decision was made between 2:46 a.m. and 2:47 a.m. in 1 minute, while standing at the kitchen counter looking at the half-made coffee she had forgotten about since 9 p.m.
What happened in that minute?
She looked at the coffee, and she thought, I made this coffee 3 hours ago and forgot about it. I've been forgetting about things for 2 years. I've been forgetting about myself. And then, very quietly, with no drama at all, she thought, I am going to go.
Just like that?
Just like that. Not a breakdown, not tears, not a dramatic realization. A very quiet, very clear, very final, I am going to go. Like a door closing gently rather than slamming. And once the thought arrived, it was the most solid thing she had felt in 2 years. More solid than the meetings, the dinners, the Thursdays, the relationship, the flat she had designed herself. The decision was the most real thing in the room.
She packed one bag.
She packed one bag, clothes for a week, her passport, her notebook, she always kept a notebook, her wallet. She left her phone, left the keys, left the half-made coffee on the counter exactly where it was, as if she would be back in the morning, as if this was just a late-night walk. And then she walked out, and she closed the door very gently so as not to wake Daniel, and she stood in the corridor for 30 seconds, and she felt for the first time in 2 years, completely present in her own body. Present in her own body. For the first time in 2 years, completely present in her own body. That is the sentence that tells you everything about why she left. Not the silence at dinner, not the 2 years of disappearing. That sentence. The leaving was the moment she arrived, back in herself.
To the listener, a door closing gently rather than slamming, a decision that is quiet and final rather than dramatic, the most solid thing she had felt in 2 years, more real, more certain than anything else. Present in my own body, fully inhabiting yourself physically and emotionally, the opposite of watching your life through a window. Keep these. They are the heart of the story.
Stay, because where she went and what she found there is not what you expect. And the postcard. We need to talk about the postcard. Where she went. She took a night train. She did not know where it was going when she bought the ticket. She looked at the departures board, 4 trains leaving in the next 30 minutes, and she chose the one whose destination she found most difficult to pronounce, which was either a completely irrational way to make a decision or the most rational one she had made in years, depending on how you looked at it.
The most difficult to pronounce.
She ended up in a small coastal town, about 4 hours away. She had never been there. She knew no one there. She checked into a guest house, paid in cash, which she always kept a small amount of, and she slept for 14 hours. When she woke up, it was afternoon. The sun was coming through thin curtains. The town was quiet, and she lay there for a long time not doing anything, not thinking about Daniel, not thinking about the job, just being in a room that did not contain a single expectation of her.
A room without expectations.
A room that did not contain a single expectation of her. That is what she was looking for. Not a new life, not an escape. A room without expectations, long enough to remember who she was when nobody was expecting anything.
And the postcard?
On the 3rd day, she found a small postcard shop near the harbor. Postcards of the sea, the lighthouse, the fishing boats. She bought one. She wrote 2 words, I'm okay. She sent it to Daniel, not because she owed him more, not yet, because 2 words were the most honest thing she had. And honest, even when small, was more than she had been for 2 years.
I'm okay. 2 words, the most she had.
And Daniel, when he received it, did not call the police, did not report her missing, because he recognized her handwriting, and because, she told me later, she thinks he understood, not everything, but enough, that she was not gone, she was away, and those are different things.
To the listener, a door closing gently rather than slamming, a decision that is quiet and final rather than dramatic, the most solid thing she had felt in 2 years, more real, more certain than anything else, present in my own body, fully inhabiting yourself physically and emotionally, the opposite of watching your life through a window. Keep these. They are the heart of the story.
Stay, because 6 months later, she came back, and what she said to Daniel, the exact words I want you to hear.
She came back after 3 months, not because she had figured everything out. She had not. Not because she had a plan. She did not. She came back because she had remembered enough of herself to trust that she could return without disappearing again.
And Daniel?
Daniel had not left. He had waited. Not passively. He had used the 3 months. He had spoken to a therapist. He had called their mutual friends and been honest, something he had rarely been before, about the state of their relationship and his own part in the silence. He had grown 3 inches, metaphorically, in 3 months.
And when she came back?
She knocked on the door of her own flat. She had not kept a key. And when Daniel opened it, she said 6 words. 6 words that she had practiced on the train home and that had still felt insufficient by the time she said them. I needed to find myself first.
6 words.
I needed to find myself first.
And Daniel, who was not a man of many words, said 4 back. Are you back now? And she said, I think so. Yes.
And were they okay?
They were different. Okay is not quite the right word for what they were. They were honest. For the first time in a long time, they were present with each other, genuinely present, not the replica of presence they had been performing. They were starting from something real, rather than continuing from something hollow, which is harder and better.
Starting from something real rather than continuing from something hollow.
That is the sentence. That is what the whole story was about. Not the leaving, not the postcard, not the small coastal town. That sentence. Starting from real rather than continuing from hollow.
To the listener, I needed to find myself first, the explanation that required the whole story to make sense. Starting from something real rather than continuing from something hollow. Choosing genuine difficulty over comfortable emptiness. Present with each other, genuinely present, not the replica of presence. The difference between being there and actually being there. These are the phrases the story was carrying all along, and now they are yours. The lesson, what Clara's story teaches in English.
And the English lesson, the real one, is this.
Every phrase in that story was natural English, real English, the kind that native speakers use to describe real human experiences, not textbook English, not example sentences, the English of actual feelings in actual situations.
Watching your life through a window, the silence became the loudest thing in the room, present in a room while entirely absent from your own life, a room without expectations, not gone, away, and those are different things, starting from real rather than continuing from hollow.
And you understood every one of them, without stopping, without a dictionary, because the story carried them, because context, emotional context, is the most powerful vocabulary teacher that exists.
This is what stories do. They teach without teaching. They put language inside feeling, and language inside feeling stays.
And Clara? She is still an architect, still in the same city, still with Daniel, though a different version of both of them. She moved the door 4 inches in the building she was working on. She still trusts that instinct. When something feels wrong in a position that cannot be explained, she moves it.
She told me that is how she thinks about the 3 months now. She moved herself 4 inches, just enough to find where she was supposed to be standing.
Just enough.
Just enough.
The word tor. First word, inhabit. To inhabit means to live in or occupy a place. In the story, inhabiting a replica means living inside a copy of a life rather than the original. You can inhabit a place physically while being emotionally absent from it. Inhabit is more precise than live in. It implies a relationship with the space you occupy.
For example, she had been inhabiting her life without living it, going through the spaces and the routines without the presence that makes them real. Repeat. Inhabit.
Inhabit.
Next, hollow. Hollow means empty inside, having a hole or empty space within. Used metaphorically, hollow describes something that appears solid but has nothing real inside. Continuing from something hollow means persisting in a relationship or situation that looks intact but is internally empty.
For example, the conversations had become hollow. The words were there, the topics were familiar, but something that used to fill them had quietly left without being noticed. Repeat. Hollow.
Hollow. Next, replica. A replica is an exact copy of something, a reproduction that resembles the original in every visible way, but is not the original. In the story, Clara felt she was living a replica of her life. Everything looked the same but was no longer genuine. For example, from the outside, nothing had changed. Same flat, same job, same relationship. From the inside, she knew she was living a replica. And replicas, however precise, are never the same as the original. Repeat. Replica. Replica. Next, depart. To depart means to leave, especially to set out on a journey. In the story, Clara's departure was quiet and without announcement. The word depart carries more weight than leave. It implies a formal beginning of a journey rather than a casual exit. For example, she departed without ceremony. No announcement, no farewell, no explanation. Just the closing of a door and the beginning of a journey whose destination she had not yet named. Repeat. Depart. Depart. Next, instinct. An instinct is a natural tendency to behave in a certain way, a feeling or knowing that arrives without conscious reasoning. Clara trusted her instinct when she moved the door 4 inches. She trusted it again when she left. Instinct in English is often described as trusting your gut, the gut feeling that knows before the mind does. For example, she had learned to trust the instinct, the feeling that arrived before the reasoning, that knew something was wrong in the position before she could explain why. Moving the door 4 inches, moving herself. Repeat. Instinct. Instinct. Next, presence. Presence means the state of being in a place, but in its deeper sense, presence means genuine engagement with the current moment. Being present is being fully there, not physically, but attentionally. Clara's story is about losing presence, feeling absent from her own life and recovering it.
For example, The return was not just physical. She came back with a presence she had lost somewhere in the 2 years before the leaving. The flat felt different because she was actually in it. Repeat. Presence. Presence. Next, sufficient. Sufficient means enough, adequate for the purpose. In the story, 2 words were the most honest thing she had, implies that honest sufficiency is more valuable than elaborate performance. Sometimes the sufficient thing, the honest small thing, is exactly right. For example, the 2 words were sufficient, not because they explained everything, but because they were true, and true, even when small, is always sufficient. Repeat. Sufficient. Sufficient.
And our final word, deliberate. Deliberate means done consciously and intentionally, not accidental, not impulsive, but chosen. Clara's leaving was deliberate, not planned in advance, but chosen fully in the moment. The distinction between impulsive and deliberate is the difference between running away and walking toward.
For example, the leaving was deliberate, not the result of a breakdown or a crisis, but of a very clear, very quiet decision made in the space of 1 minute that felt more considered than anything she had decided in the 2 years before it. Repeat. Deliberate. Deliberate. 8 words. Inhabit, hollow, replica, depart, instinct, presence, sufficient, deliberate. Everyone arrived in the story before it arrived in this word tour, and that is the whole lesson. Language that arrives in feeling stays. This week, 1 practice. Tell someone this story in English, not word for word, your version. 3 minutes, out loud. Use whatever you remember. She left at 3 a.m., 1 bag. The silence became the loudest thing in the room. Not gone, away. Whatever stayed with you. Because retelling a story in English is one of the fastest ways to make its vocabulary yours. The story is now inside you. Let it come back out, in your voice, in your words, in English.
I'm Mary.
I'm Albert, LeapTalk English. Thank you for listening to Clara's story, and for staying until the end. See you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.